that's the lesson that you take from this. Don't ever, ever, ever give up on someone.
When it comes down to it, it's a very difficult sport.
I enjoy the people that are here.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to Community Closeup. I'm Joe Nelson. Today we take a look at issues facing our neighbors that often go unnoticed. We meet a veteran who is continuing to serve his community with the help of a four-legged friend. A group of women share their stories for the first time, finding friends and freedom with a pen and paper. And we'll show you how Discover Aviation Days lift more than spirits as families share memories and make new ones in Blaine. But first, instead of finishing his degree, a North Dakota State University student has spent the past 2 months learning how to walk again. Elias Youngboom suffered permanent damage but is seeing improvement with each passing day. Now he sees life from a different perspective. Elias Youngboom spends every day with friends and family close by.
In 8 or 9 weeks, there have been 12 hours where I haven't had family or friends here.
The North Dakota State University music education senior and marching band drummer wasn't able to complete his courses this semester, but has more valuable things to learn or relearn now.
This week I started feeding myself again, which sounds stupid and easy, but it's such a huge thing.
On March 16th, after visiting his girlfriend in Fargo, Elias was on his way back home to Coon Rapids, but his drive was cut short.
I was hit head-on by a drunk driver that was going the wrong way down I-94, so they were going westbound in the eastbound lane, and it was just over a hill, so I didn't really have time to react, and I didn't see it coming. Yeah, and so I was extracted from the car, I don't know how long, and airlifted to Sanford Health in Fargo.
Police say 44-year-old Jana Battern of Fergus Falls with a .196 blood alcohol content crashed into Elias in Otter Tail County and suffered lesser injuries. Hours later, the news spread to his family.
The real situation was so much worse than I knew or maybe even could have imagined. Both vehicles were going 70 miles an hour. The impact was just tremendous. So he just... Everything was swollen and tubes everywhere.
Broke every bone in my face. I think I broke my jaw in 3 places, radius and ulna. I broke the middle 2 bones in my hand, my middle finger. Liver laceration was another one that they had to take care of right away. I guess some bleeding in the brain that they took care of right away. And then later, it surfaced that I had some nerve damage in my right leg, too.
He suffered minimal damage to his brain, and doctors expected a full recovery until...
They're doing a routine exam, and they said, okay, follow the light with your eyes, and I didn't see a light.
Elias will likely never see again.
I had just had one morning where I woke up, and it just all of a sudden hit me, and it was really hard.
I feel a little bit better now about everything because I can see how well he's doing, but it's still hard for me. I think it's the most unjust piece of this,
The Youngboom family will never forget the damage drinking and driving leaves behind.
Realistically, I should have been dead. I mean, it's pretty much a miracle that I'm here, just because she wanted to go for a joyride, a drunk joyride on a Monday afternoon.
It was just so totally avoidable. I don't understand how somebody who's that age, she's not young, she's not in her 20s, could make a decision like that. If I had anything to say, it wouldn't be anything very nice right now. Obviously she has a problem, a drinking problem, but I think she has more than a drinking problem because she has a thinking problem too.
Elias says he hopes others will learn from her mistake.
Just don't do it. It's just so stupid. It's not worth it. I mean, you could kill somebody.
But with goals of running a 5K this fall and returning to teaching music, he continues to get stronger each week at the Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute in Golden Valley.
I showered by myself. I haven't done that in 2 months. It's great. It's amazing. It's a great way to keep positive. Basically, it's helping me stay focused and wanting to improve each week. So.
The NDSU Gold Star Marching Band has been in tune with Elias's progress every step of the way and performed a tribute from across the pond.
Actually, the marching band took a trip to Ireland in March, and they dedicated a parade to me because it was right after the accident.
What did that mean to you?
it's pretty cool. Obviously I didn't find out until much later, but it was, yeah, it was just one of those reminders of why band is such a great thing, or has been such a great thing in my life.
And through the support of loved ones and even complete strangers, Elias is marching on.
If I had to sit, by myself in my room and stew over all my thoughts, that would be it would have been a tough journey, but yeah, having people here and always encouraging me, and that definitely is what's helping me through.
Battern does have a prior DWI conviction and could face up to 15 years in prison if convicted. Elias has a fund set up to help cover medical bills. For a link to his page, go to our website at ctnstudios.com. Today we're joined by Coon Rapids therapist Susan Roller. Susan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Susan, how does it affect someone when they suffer a life-altering injury like this? What's the first step to just moving on to a normal life?
Yeah, I think the first step is getting help. And with a major injury like this, you're looking both at the physical recovery, but also the emotional recovery. And I think you need specialized services for both.
What's necessary just to be able to start to move on?
Right. Well, I think one of the nice things we saw in the story was the family support that this person was getting. And I think that's a huge contributor to moving on and finding wellness. I think finding ways to work through the grief and loss of your physical capabilities is going to be an important factor, and then learning coping strategies of how do I live this new life.
And what kind of progress have you seen from people over time?
I think that the process can sometimes feel very, very slow adjusting to the new normal. But people do get better, and they do find help, they find supports, and they find things that work for them.
And it's just amazing to see the resolve that people
It's
can have.
fantastic.
Up next, how victims of domestic assault are helping each other one word at a time.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Victims of abusive relationships are finding peace and understanding through ink and paper. The Alexandra House in Blaine is bringing women in and emotions out through writing.
It all began as a child. It all began after I said I do.
Crystal, a mother of 2 boys from Blaine, expected life to follow a different path.
I had a vision of, this happy marriage and retiring, sitting on my stoop with my husband and, watching our grandchildren play in the yard.
But after suffering through verbal and physical domestic abuse, she knew a change was needed.
It all began when I stood up for myself. It all began when I finally called the police.
Something you should know about me. I am a caring, helpful, loving, and supportive person.
Faith from St. Paul, who asked us not to show her face, saw abuse from her husband at a younger age. Years later, after moving in with her daughter, it returned in another form.
I knew it wasn't me that was the problem, but that you couldn't express because they couldn't see it. I have health issues, and peace is something that helps to keep me healthy. So I just knew I had to leave.
Although Faith and Crystal took different paths, both found the Alexandra House in Blaine and met Maddie P., a follow-up advocate who recognized victims' needs for expression.
In a group space, it's not always comfortable for everybody to just talk about what's happening, and so they still need a way to interact with that and process themselves.
With a passion to put pen to paper, Maddie researched the effects of writing on domestic abuse victims. Finding no answer, she decided to still give it a try, starting her own writing group at the house.
We go through goals every week, and it's always the same 3 goals: to take control of what I tell myself, to use words and community to help me heal and let me be me, and to find out who I am and not who others say I am.
Then quiet, lost, and painfully alone, weak, behind the cage, looking in, beautiful, looking out, fearful.
Through different exercises and prompts each week, the writers are seeing the power of personal prose.
Starting today, I decided to take my life back, stay in my lane, and allow others to do for themselves as I have done for them in the past.
One of the things we do is a big tree exercise where we talk about how do we integrate our past, our present, and how do we get to our future? How do we work through all of that?
Faith and Crystal say problems became easier to identify after turning thoughts into words on paper.
Coming to the group enhanced my ability to recognize things that were going on within me that I wasn't aware of.
Now it's physical, it's in front of me, which is scary, but it also means that it's out there, it's not inside of me anymore, and I can deal with it.
And I didn't really had to realize that I was in an abusive relationship. And the longer I've been writing about what's happening or where I'm at, the more I've see, what was really going on.
It helped me to be able to express myself. It has helped me not be afraid to do it. Because once you see it, so be it.
The writers say they also found comfort in hearing others' stories, knowing they're not alone, and offering advice.
Sometimes I get to a point in the class that I feel like I might be able to tell them something as well, that they could learn from.
I'm a much happier person. I can get that junk out, and what's left is, peace and happiness and, being okay and accepting of who I am versus having this nasty stuff inside of me. Now peacefully happy and centered, powerful, cage is gone, I am free, and you could see that in me.
Crystal and Faith say the Alexandra House offers more than just an outlet and an ear.
After I left my abusive relationship, I didn't have a job. My car broke down. So that was my concern, and it kills a person to tell their children that Santa Claus, isn't coming this year, and I'm sorry about that to their children. So they made it possible.
I can't say enough about this place. I've never lived in any of this kind of facility, but you couldn't ask for any more.
Everybody's walking in not just with that abuse that they've experienced, but also with the stress of trying to find housing, trying to find out who I am in the midst of all of this, trying to get a job, trying to recover from addiction, whatever that is, and writing really opens the door to that and says whatever it is that you want to address in this group is fine.
By seeing progress, helping women uncover talents, and recognizing their value, Maddie says she's seeing benefits too.
It's amazing. It's a huge honor, and I say that almost every group because it's such an overwhelming thing to have someone read their own work in their own voice.
It all began as I started to seek help. It all began when I loved myself. It all began.
For information on joining the writing group, visit their website at alexandrahouse.org. We're joined once again by therapist Susan Roller. Susan, what kind of psychological effects can domestic abuse have on a person?
The effects can be very far-reaching. Typically, we can see things like post-traumatic stress develop, depression, anxiety, insomnia, and of course, when the family is affected, it doesn't just affect the person who's being assaulted, but their children as well.
And just how important is it to seek out help?
I think it's critically important to seek out help. It breaks the cycle of isolation that is so common in domestic violence.
And do you see the effects of this linger for a long time, or can it possibly go away at some point?
What we know about post-traumatic stress disorder is that we don't cure it. Of course, not everyone who is involved with domestic abuse develops PTSD, but the symptoms can persist, but we know that people can recover and can learn coping skills.
And it's just great to see that there are so many more resources for people to use now.
Absolutely, and that is one of the things. Reach out, get help.
Coming up, how a furry 4-year-old is helping veterans in Anoka. Stay with us.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
After coming home from deployment and ending his military service, Tony Tengwall wanted to continue to help former soldiers. But memories of battle made life and work difficult until he met a friend with a wagging tail and bad breath.
I enlisted when I was 17 in the Minnesota Army National Guard.
Tony Tengwall says he knew he wanted to serve his country at an early age, but what he started as a way to make extra money for school 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year drastically changed on September 11th, 2001.
When 9/11 happened, and then especially when the U.S. invaded Iraq, you could see the writing on the wall. There was some excitement, but there was a lot of nervous, scared, didn't really know what to expect.
His deployment to Iraq in 2004 soon taught him difficult lessons that couldn't be learned in basic training.
We lost 3 guys in February of 2005. Actually had a rollover accident, and while they were carrying the soldier who was thrown from the vehicle, they went directly over an IED that went off. Killed our 3 guys. I think there was some guys from another unit that were injured as well.
The supply sergeant then began a new battle fought not between enemy lines, but between his ears.
You don't have time to really process it and grieve over it. It's, well, we got to move on. We've still got stuff that has to happen. That is the hardest thing in my life.
Returning home with no physical injuries in December of 2005 brought on new challenges. Tony left the war, but the war didn't leave him.
When I got back, I lived with some of my buddies that I was deployed with, which was nice because you were around people that understood what you're going through. But at the same time, you know, it was a lot of drinking, staying out all night, you know, just kind of trying to relive that year that you missed.
Tony says he didn't realize the impact his service left on him until he started working with veterans years later.
The biggest thing was just being honest with myself and actually saying, you know what, I've got some things that are broken. I could see that I wasn't where I wanted to be and I wasn't going in a good direction.
Battling post-traumatic stress disorder, Tony's path toward mental health led him to a Becker County Veteran Service officer.
Had me over for dinner and they had a bunch of dogs. I went up to her house once and met Fitz, and just instantly she could see the way I reacted, that I was happier, I had a smile on my face. You know, I got along with him. We really hit it off as, you know, a person and a dog can.
The English Cocker Spaniel, trained as a service dog and available for adoption, soon became Tony's therapist, co-worker, and friend.
Then I couldn't see what he was doing to me, but the people around me, my family, my friends, could tell that I was just a different person with him in my life. He can read me better than I can read me. If I have road rage and I'm driving down the road, he can sense that. He'll put his head up on my shoulder. He works great for me because he hunts and loves to be outside.
Now a veteran service officer in Anoka County, Tony brings Fitz to work every day, and vets coming in take notice.
At first it's really awkward because you have this dog and you can take him everywhere, but now everyone's staring at you like, why does he have a dog? In our line of work, you're not always dealing with the happiest people, because if things are going well, they probably don't need to come see their CVSO. So a lot of people will come in pretty angry, and he has the ability to certainly diffuse that situation by, you know, he'll go up and they'll start petting him, and they're, you know, it takes the edge off, and they're like, well, here's what's going on, you know. Oh, he's a good dog.
Oh, they come in kind of grumpy, and after they see him, then they calm down, and they leave here very happy.
We've actually had veterans call and say, you know, hey, is Fitz there? And we're like, well, yeah. Well, I lost my dog a couple years ago. I'm really missing him. I want to come in and see him. Cool, come on in. I've spent a lot of my time with Fitz explaining to people how psychiatric service dogs work, you know, kind of opening people's eyes to that, because it's a pretty new concept.
Tony says Fitz is focused on helping others in the office most of the time.
If he sees a ball, he loses his mind.
I love having him here. Now if I could just teach him to answer the phone, I'd be all right.
When we do demobilization events and all these units are coming back, I would just let him run the room. But he can kind of sense who's stressed out, and he'll buddy up to that person and just hang out with them the rest of the day. So stuff like that, he can kind of read a room and figure out who needs him.
It's just a great asset to the office, him and Tony both.
He's my dog, but he affects a lot of people.
For more information on how veterans can get a service dog, go to caninesforwarriors.org. And to meet Fitz, stop by the Anoka County Veterans Service Office. We're joined once again by therapist Susan Roller. Susan, what kind of common trends do you see with PTSD?
Well, you know, the symptoms that we typically see are things like depression, anxiety, hypervigilance, insomnia, outbursts of anger.
And how have service animals been able to help people with those kind of conditions?
You know, service animals can have a tremendous impact on people living with PTSD. Service animals are trained, and the person living with PTSD can rely on the animal's instincts. The people with service animals tend to have better health, and the animals can also act as a social buffer to decrease isolation, which is important.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Susan. We really appreciate your insight today.
Thank you for having me.
When we return, we'll meet more veterans who share a common bond in the skies. Stay with us.
Hart, what's going on? I'm leaving. Why? What did I do? Not enough. You constantly ignore me. You barely eat anything healthy. You're half as active as you used to be. The pressure is just too much. I quit. Okay, I get it. I'll do better. Just please, don't leave. Okay. But remember, if I go, you go.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Before there were crowded airports and flight delays, it was all about the magic and wonder of flying. For nearly 25 years, the Anoka County Blaine Airport has hosted Discover Aviation Days. We leave you with Community Close-Up's Jenny Yu at Janes Field, where young and old are rediscovering aviation. Thanks for watching Community Close-Up. I'm Joe Nelson. We'll see you next month.
It's a rumble so distinct, even the hardest of hearing recognize it. These warbirds and vintage aircrafts at Discover Aviation Days take veterans like Harlan Blankenship back about 75 years to World War II.
P-38 in the Philippines.
Now at 92, he still remembers the invasion of the Philippines. The P-38 Lightning was key to destroying Japanese Air Force on the islands.
He was in the Army Air Corps back in World War II. He did not fly, but he was a radio man, guiding in planes.
Step forward a couple generations to grandson Travis Anderson, who grew up with Grandpa's war stories.
He was a flight instructor at Flying Cloud his whole career, flying over 25,000 hours. So, well, a lot of knowledge on planes and loves to fly.
I did fly airplanes all of my life.
Now to great-grandson Titus.
It's just a great experience, really exciting to see Grandpa light up and show us all the planes that he saw in action in World War II, and then also that he flew and learned to fly on. Just to have Titus, a little young, but he just likes looking at the shiny planes and loud noises.
Around 13,000 people made it out to the Anoka County Blaine Airport to see more than 75 of those shiny planes.
We've got aviation for the youth, for the elderly. We have aircraft from all ages. We have World War II vintage, civil aviation, home-built, experimental.
Craig Schiller has volunteered at Discover Aviation Days for nearly 25 years.
We depend on our crowd size to keep the organization financially sound.
He says the experience is free, but a parking donation is encouraged.
And we design it that way so that families can come in and not feel they have a large expense to participate and come experience the air show itself.
And it not only gives a generation of World War II vets a chance to reminisce in the past, but allows aviation to stay alive for generations of the future.
For example, we have the Civil Air Patrol. They're a youth organization that inspires not only teachings and ethics, but also encourage in aviation and in programs.
I was always interested in aviation.
Cadet Master Sergeant Peter Hoban has been in the Civil Air Patrol for more than a year.
We have 3 main missions, character development, emergency services, and aerospace education.
At 16, he says he's already prepared to join the military.
It gives me an opportunity to learn how to lead, learn how to be an effective leader, so that I can be successful in later life.
So we're trying to hook the younger generation because we do have an older generation that is retiring from flying.
Shelley Kaufman is the president of Discover Aviation Days. She's also a pilot.
It's starting to become something that is fading away as our veterans die, and we're trying to keep those stories alive. By keeping the aircraft flying, we keep the stories alive so that children who are now being brought up are learning about the history.
And speaking of generations,
I have my next generation. I call this my little wingman. I'm having a little boy, so I'm going to introduce him to the next generation of flying.
She's even convinced her father, George Supan, to join the Civil Air Patrol, where he's had a chance to go on missions to find missing people and aid in natural disasters.
It's through aviation that I've been able to really enjoy life in my older years. I'm going to say that because I'm not a youngster anymore, but I can enjoy life in my older years with my daughter, my future grandson. Aviation will be in our family for years to come.